Hello and welcome back to Balanced Psychologies. I hope that you're all doing really well. So today's video is all about the narcissist and change. And I'm not sure whether these two should really be in the same sentence, but nevertheless, can the narcissist change? Now, I've been getting a lot of questions about can a narcissist change? Well, not specifically in that context, but in the context of the narcissist has moved on and they've got another supply, another relationship, and it seems to be going absolutely amazing. And you're looking at it and you're thinking, wow, you know, maybe it was me. Maybe I have done something wrong. Maybe when they were with me, I brought out the worst in them. Or it could be in a family context where, you know, your family members are being really good to you, really nice to you, and you're thinking, wow, then maybe, you know, maybe they've turned a corner and maybe I should respond to this in some way. So yeah, there's many different scenarios where you might think that the narcissist is able to change and they probably seem like they are really winning at life and doing really well. So I'm going to answer all of this in the video. So let's get into the video. The first thing that I'm going to say is if somebody wants to change and they're invested in change, then they will. Okay, they actually will change. And the thing is, what we have to look at here is we're talking about people who have a personality disorder. And I'm going to talk separately about people who have traits of narcissism, but they haven't got the extreme version of narcissistic personality disorder. So we're going to talk about the personality disorder per se. Okay, so when we're looking at a personality disorder, what we're looking at is a disordered personality, a disordered way of looking at the world around you or perceiving the world around you, and understanding the social cues, the understanding of emotional cues, and being able to relate to others in the world. Okay, and so that's where the crux of this disorder is. That's where the deficit in a personality disorder is. It's the ability to be able to relate to another human being. So it's relational issues that we're talking about here. Now, in order for somebody to change, they have to have a perspective, or they have to have an awareness and understanding that their behaviors are affecting people in a certain way. When you have that understanding that your behavior is affecting somebody, then you have the understanding that maybe, okay, it's not a positive effect that I'm having on another person. It is, it's negative. So I kind of need to invest in being able to change. Now, when we're looking at narcissistic people or people with personality disorders, they have an inability to do this. And there's various reasons why that is. First of all, they don't take responsibility for their actions. They don't want to take responsibility to kind of say or understand that their behaviors are initiating a negative response from somebody else, or their behaviors and their actions are having a negative reaction or response from another person. And this is where empathy comes into it. So if you have empathy, you're able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. So by that I mean you're able to understand that your actions are actually having a negative effect on someone else. So this promotes change. This, you want to change. You don't want to hurt another person. But a narcissistic individual or a toxic individual doesn't have that ability to be able to have that understanding or that awareness. The way that they see it is that their behaviors basically get them a certain outcome, and it's the outcome that they want. So why would they want to change? So there's no motivation to want to change who they are because they get what they want. And that's basically the understanding that they have. If I do A, B, and C, I'm going to get that reaction from that person. And that's basically where we are with this. As we know, narcissistic individuals don't have empathy. So going back to what I said earlier, if you don't want to change, or if you don't So if you don't have empathy, then you have no realization or understanding how your behaviors affect somebody else. Narcissists really think of themselves as victim, and this is good for them because it means that they remain ignorant, but they don't take responsibility for their actions. So they always see it as it's somebody else that is doing something to them, or that person deserves it, or that should really happen to that person. So then you have no responsibility or motivation to want to change. Even though they say all these things that they do, that they will change, and that they really want to make this relationship work, and they want to make you happy, I suppose in some way, maybe they do, maybe they want to do that, but they just don't have the ability to do that, because again, like I said, with personality disorders, the crux of the disorder is in the ability to be able to relate, to be able to connect, to bond to somebody in a healthy way, and they can't do that. They don't have that understanding because of their skewed way of seeing the world around them. So basically what I'm saying by that is their social cues, their emotional understanding is basically not there, or it's very different to the way that we understand it. And that's where the deficits are, that's where the kind of the arguments probably stem from, is because you're arguing, you're trying to put your point of view across and trying to explain why somebody should have done it like this or how they should have done it like that. And the narcissist doesn't really have that understanding. They see it in one way and one way only. The reason for this is if we look at the narcissistic upbringing, okay, the child, aka the narcissist, would have been rejected by their parents. They would have been completely and utterly told that they are worthless, that they are nothing. And so the narcissist as a child learned that who they are is not really acceptable, or they're just basically not good enough. So they have to change to get the attention and the validation from their parent, because that's what they've always wanted. They wanted to get that validation from their parents. So who they are now is not really acceptable, so they need to change. And that's where this change comes from, their change. So that's where this kind of splitting comes from. They basically dissociate from themselves, they dissociate from who they are in order to become somebody else. And that's where these big defense mechanisms, that's where these big egos come from. It's basically from the dissociation of self. So if we go back to what I was saying, the ability to be able to relate in a healthy way, or attach in a healthy way, is not there. That's why, because they are so far removed from who they actually are, and they have real issues in being able to relate to other people, being able to relate and understand themselves. I always talk about this. They have an external locus of control, so they see everything as external. So in order to get validation, to get attention, it's all external. So if you're looking at this in a context, will the narcissist ever change? No, they won't, actually, because they don't have that ability to understand. Their understanding is very limited. And if you think about this, their behaviors or their moods happen in a cycle. Okay, so it happens, the same thing happens over and over again. And that's why their behaviors then become actually quite predictable. Because if you do the same thing over and over again, you're going to know the outcome. So this is where their need for control and manipulation comes from, because if you control something, you're going to know the outcome. So then you're able to manipulate the results. So that's why they do what they do, because for them it's safety. They feel safe in knowing what the outcome is going to be, and that's why they do the same thing over and over again. They might say things to you, the same thing over and over again, but nothing ever actually changes, because they don't have that understanding and the ability to understand what they're actually saying and the way that they're perceiving the whole scenario, the whole situation. They also don't want to take responsibility, because if you take responsibility, then that means you have understanding and that you are able to have accountability for what has happened. And they don't do that because their understanding is limited. So going back to what I was saying, to have this cyclical way of being, think about it when they discard and then they have new supply. The way that they behave in that relationship is exactly the same as how they have the same way as they have behaved in the relationship with you. It isn't going to be any different. They're not going to behave any other way, even though on paper or on social media or whatever, it looks like they're having the most amazing relationship. But that's an illusion. It's a projection, and they did this with you. So you know what that person or that supply, what is going to be next for them, because that's exactly what they're going to be going through. This is the next stage. They're just going to go through the same thing that you did. And it's the same, like for example, even in a family setting, even though that parent or your parents feel or seem to be really lovely to you now, it might be that they're going through a stage where they are wanting to connect, they're going through that cycle, that part of the cycle that is that they're love bombing, they're being really lovely, but then they will resort to those behaviors that are not so pleasant. And that's what I'm trying to say. It happens in a cyclical fashion. If you're doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, I mean, isn't that the definition of madness? That's what the narcissist does. That's what they do. They do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And you see, this is why when somebody wants to change, all right, if we look at it, like if you want to change, you will want to work on yourself. You will want to understand that how your behaviors and how your actions are affecting somebody else, and what you want to do is you want to change this for the better. You want this to be a positive outcome for that person or for you as well. So you have to have some level of understanding. You also have to have some empathy as well to be able to understand that what you are doing, you have to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. Now the narcissist, they have limited capacity. And when we want to change, we do this because from the bottom of our hearts, we don't want to cause pain and hurt to anybody else. So we will do everything that we can to make sure that we do change, or we do maybe adapt our way of being so that it doesn't, produce the same results. And that's the difference. We take accountability and responsibility for our actions, and we would like to change because we don't want to get the same results by doing the same thing. It's not having a positive effect. So that's why a narcissist cannot change. They will never change. They will never have the understanding that what they are doing is actually hurting somebody else. They can see it, they feel it, they see it, but because they have no empathy, or their empathy capacity is limited, this really affects the way that they relate to other people and the way that they are towards you. And that's basically who they are. They are stuck in their own way of being because of their childhood. And there's many of you probably out there that think that probably you can help them. First of all, I'm going to say you can't, because they don't have the awareness. And second of all, it's not your responsibility to do that. It's their own. And we have to accept that some people are just not going to be able to understand that or do that. And that's where we are with this. So guys, I really hope that this video sheds some more light on the subject. I know that this is quite a particularly emotional subject for so many people, and I really hope that this video helps shed some light on this and understanding that narcissistic individuals can't change. They don't actually have the ability. It's not a choice that they basically have. It's just who they are, because their capacity of understanding is limited or very different. If there's any of you out there that would like to get some healing from narcissistic abuse, I do have my Patreon membership, with all the details are down below. I also do one-to-one session, and again, all the details are down below. If you don't fancy a session or joining the Patreon membership, and you just want to ask a question just because you want to get a quick answer, then I also have my Wizio page, and I will answer your question with a video specifically for you. And I think at the moment there is either 10 or 25% off. Just have a look in the details below. There's a code that you can enter in and get that over and get the offer before it actually expires. And guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you to each and every one of you, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.